second chances. You wouldn't think that 3 drivers who have won 12 races among them would need a second chance. But these 3 men, separated by only 8 points in their quest for IndyCar greatness, will take one. Last season, Scott Dixon was the picture of perfection on a race course, winning 6 races and opening up a sizable points lead over Elio Castroneves going into the final race.
Here they come to the line. It's going to be Dixon, is it?
Dixon won the championship, but not in the fashion he had hoped for.
You are the winner of the race.
No way, I knew it.
Today, he hopes to win his 3rd IndyCar championship with a trip to victory lane.
The IndyCar Series title comes down to a few points, a few seconds, a few split seconds. It's going to be on the line.
2 years ago, Dixon and Dario Franchitti were rivals on different teams, battling for a title on the last lap of the season.
Dario swings it wide. Dixon had to lift. Dixon is out of fuel. Dario Franchitti's going to win the race and the championship.
Franchitti's victory was Dixon's heartbreak. But after he won the title, the Scotsman left IndyCar to drive for Chip Ganassi's NASCAR team, where after a year of struggle, he returned to IndyCar. Today, Dario and Dixon are Ganassi teammates who must balance the fine line between working together and racing for a championship.
To take the championship, I think you're going to have to win it. So there'll be nothing left on the table tonight.
In 2005, Ryan Briscoe was a driver for Chip Ganassi when the unthinkable happened.
Whoa! The car split in half.
It took months for Ryan to recover from this crash, and he didn't return full-time to IndyCar until last season when he took over Roger Penske's number 6 car. This season has been a breakout season for the driver from Down Under with 3 wins.
Get the cameras out for a photo finish. Briscoe got him!
Today, Ryan Briscoe races for his first IndyCar championship.
I think I've grown a lot as an IndyCar driver. I feel like I belong, and winning the championship would just be awesome.
3 drivers trying to capitalize on a second chance. The 2009 IndyCar season finale. You won't get a second chance to see this kind of history made. Settle back, folks, and get ready for some exciting IndyCar racing and the determination of the champion for 2009. It's the Firestone Indy 300, live from Homestead Miami Speedway here on Versus. It's a 1.5-mile true oval here with the banking and the turns 18 to 20 degrees. And always has led to some very, very exciting races. It's the 17th and final event of the year, with 3 drivers going for the championship. Al Unser Jr. will give the command. Let's get things going.
Race fans, are you ready? The time is now. It's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome back Al Unser Jr. as he gives the command.
In honor of National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, ladies and gentlemen, fire up those Honda engines!
Honda engines coming to life as 23 drivers now get set for 200 laps, 300 miles of racing to end the season. Seems like such a short time ago we were getting ready to start the season 6 months ago, and here we are ending it. Again, there are many scenarios that can lead to a championship, but if Dixon or Franchitti win the race, they can win the championship. Basically speaking, all you want to do is keep your two opponents behind you and do the best you can. Certainly the bonus points are important because 1 point has already been awarded to the pole sitter, Dario Franchitti, and you get 2 bonus points for leading the most laps. And there's the points breakdown, 50 points for first, 40 for second, and on down the line. The cars begin to move away. Couple of warm-up laps and we will get the green flag. Dario Franchitti will have an onboard camera with him. Yesterday in qualifying, he's the man that picked up the extra bonus point, his 5th pole position of the year for peak performance. Ryan Briscoe has 4 pole positions this year, and that leads all other drivers. All right, let's take a look at the starting lineup. Row 1, Franchitti and Dixon. The 3 title contenders are starting first, second, and third, not necessarily in their order of points. 2 former winners of the field, Dixon and Weldon. The farthest back a winner has ever started was 12th in 2003, and that was accomplished by Scott Dixon. In fact, he scored his very first career win here at Homestead, and it came in his first career start. Rafa Matos going for Rookie of the Year honors here. Elio Castroneves crashed during practice yesterday. Starts back in the inside of row number 6. There's Justin Wilson, the winner at Watkins Glen, and Dan Weldon, the other former winner in the field besides Scott Dixon. Sarah Fisher is in the race. She'll be in an all-pink car, number 67. Milka Duno and EJ Viso are back in row number 9. In the 10th row, it's Hideki Muto and Mike Conway. Ryan Hunter-Ray and Robert Dornbos in number 11, and Jacques Lazier in row number 12. All right, we're on board with Sarah Fisher. She not only will have a pink car, but notice the pink sidewalls on the tires. Tony Kanaan also will carry an onboard camera for his 7-11 team, starting in row number 8. Graham Rahal starts in row number 3, 6th position, qualifying at over 211.5 miles an hour. And now all 3 contenders have an onboard camera. Here's Ryan Briscoe. He will start in 3rd position. Scott Dixon will be on the outside of row number 1 for the start of today's race. And his teammate to his left, the pole sitter, is Dario Franchitti with a lap of 2:12.9. 4-lap average. Down to Chackaroot.
Well, we want to talk about a championship strategy. I go to what Al Davis always said with the Oakland Raiders. Just win, baby. The way you're going to have to do that, be ahead of the other guys. Do it with a pit stop and do it with your in laps and your out laps. We'll track it down here at Firestone Pit Central.
All right. Thank you. There's Jamie Davis, the president of Versus, and he has the distinction of waving the green flag for today's race. And notice that all the IndyCar Series officials are wearing pink here today in recognition of Cancer Awareness Month and the race against breast cancer. All right. The drivers accelerating and lining up 2 by 2 for the start of today's final event of 2009. They come off of corner number 4 with Dario Franchitti leading, and the green flag is out. The Apex Brazil green flag gets us going the final time here in 2009.
Ed Carpenter in the bright green car. Looks like he's going to slot into 3rd. So the 3 championship contenders, Briscoe now has dropped off the top 2.
Boy, you just got to think that Ed Carpenter, who started in 4th position, has to prove something because of his incredible run at Kentucky. Maybe this is his night. And look at this. The championship contenders for Ganassi are side by side.
Here comes Dixon. He's already going for it. When you see all those sparks at the opening of a race, it's because the tire pressures are not up yet. The cars are dragging on the ground. Look at this. Right around the outside.
You really would think at this point is, guys, let's not challenge each other too much and get up on the high side. Let's just work together. But also, Dixon, who is on the high side, he said, hey, we need to get the first handful of laps behind us to really figure out what kind of cars we have, and then we'll talk about strategy. Well, so he went right to the high side.
They are going at it already, and now Dixon has a slight advantage that they get to the end of the back stretch and head into turn 1, but Dario fights back on the inside.
And remember, with Dixon just challenging Franchitti to get the lead of this race, let's not forget about those 2 bonus points that you get for leading the most laps. And I know that was a big disappointment for Tim Cindric and what happened with Elio at the beginning of this race, because they wanted Elio up in this mix, even though he's not in the championship chase, but they wanted him to be able to challenge these guys to take that possible 2 points away from the team Target Ganassi cars not getting those possible points.
Ryan Briscoe has just got by Ed Carpenter, so the 3 championship contenders now back 1, 2, 3. Like you say, Robbie, amazing. Scott Dixon just staying there. This is a long race to be running side by side.
And what that does when they're side by side like this, Ryan's back there saying, hey, you guys could have worked together and pulled away, but I'm going to get right on your tail right now.
Closing in quickly in third.
So do you think that move that we saw with Carpenter at the beginning of this race, was that Ryan Briscoe just being a little bit more conservative?
You know what, Robbie? That might be, but when you watch the side-by-side, here's what I think Dixon is doing is now Dixon edges ahead. Remember in Japan, Franchitti was able to make some fantastic mileage. And in fact, Franchitti was able to pit on the same sequence as his teammates. Well, now Scott Dixon is forcing Franchitti to run a lot harder. If you want to look at whoever makes the best mileage, Dixon historically has been that. Maybe he's trying to burn his teammate down a little bit, Robbie Floyd.
Well, over Brian Briscoe's radio, he said, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. You're faster than these guys. You can tell not much concern out of the Penske number 6. Although he has 2 target cars just directly in front of him, you can see how fast he closes in. But 3 wide here, I don't know that you want to be doing that, especially this early.
We have talked a lot about all year, teammates, teammates, teammates. But Bob, you dropped that stat right when we came on the air. It's the first time that the championship has come down in the final race, that is, against 2 teammates. They're not teammates anymore. You know what I'm saying? Well, they're not going to be running nose to tail necessarily because they're individually going after the championship.
But we're not even 10 laps into a 200-lap race. So let's be teammates until we get to the last 25 laps. Obviously,
they're not.
That's not happening.
Dario and Scott battle for the lead. Dario has earned the 2 bonus points for leading the most laps 3 times this season, and he's won all 3 of those races. Stay with us. IndyCar nonstop on Versus. It is hot and humid in South Florida, but it is great racing weather. As you can see, Scott Dixon is all by himself out on the lead. He and Dario were battling for the lead when we went to break, but you saw on IndyCar Nonstop that Franchitti dropped back to 3rd. Here is what it looked like from Ryan's perspective.
And that car on the left, there's Franchitti. By just trying to keep his car on the bottom, it started to wash up the racetrack, and when it washes up, he had to get out of the gas, and we saw Briscoe run right on by.
Lindy, what are they saying down there?
Well, the number 10 team is telling me that there's nothing wrong, and Dario didn't say anything over the radio. Around the same time, over in teammate Scott Dixon's camp, Mike Hull told Scott, you really need to start getting a better exit off of turns 2 and 4.
It's a case of where the cars are changing, just like the drivers predicted, just like we talked about. You can see in some parts of the racetrack it's sunny. There's some cloud cover in other areas. The temperature is starting to drop down. You have guys like Dan Weldon who are looking at here. Everybody is going to be working the controls in the car. He's working his way forward. He may not have liked his qualifying run, but he's moving to the front.
And he's got his sway bars he can move. He has his weight jacker. But Weldon, he's brilliant at driving a car fast off the right rear, balancing it off that right rear. And there's some guys who just can't do that. They like a car where the front's leading.
Marco Andretti has moved to 4th and Weldon 5th. Here's Danica Patrick and make that to Scheckter and Graham Rahal battling for position.
And we've seen Scheckter drop back a couple spots. We just saw Castro Neves go by him before. Now he's lost another spot as well to Graham.
Graham Rahal did not compete at this track last year. He crashed during the day before practice, and they did not get the car repaired, so his debut was last year at St. Petersburg, which he won. So this is his first time racing here at Homestead.
And we talked the other day, too, about the Newman Haas Lanigan team. And in the off-season, this team made incredible strides on their package on these super speedways. And we see that. He finished 3rd there at Motegi. He was 5th at Chicago, Kentucky. So they have definitely found the speed and balance to make that a happier race car for Graham.
Thomas Scheckter on top and Alex Lloyd on the bottom. He is driving for Newman Haas Lanigan Racing with her sponsorship, just like he did at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Scheckter is just trying all he can to get the position, and he's going to do it.
But Alex Lloyd has more momentum on the top side of the racetrack. He should be able to pull clear, as he does, down the back straightaway.
Alex Lloyd in this ride full-time next year. Now here is Danica Patrick and Dan Weldon in a tussle for 5th position. Danica with really a very, very good season. And we don't know yet what she's going to do next year. She says she'll tell us when the time comes, Jack.
Yeah, and Bob, right now she is the one driver that's using the most of the overtake button to get by just then and put Weldon behind her. She had to hit the overtake button. There are 20 overtakes allowed in this race. She's already used 4. She's down to 16.
Traditionally, we have seen, I mean, there's only been, what, 5-6 races they've had the overtake assist, but she does tend to use it early in the races, whereas many people save it for the end.
What's really interesting to see here, this track has just got to be scorching hot, and it's got to be slick for what these guys are doing. We know a lot of teams put more downforce on these race cars, but I'm really surprised about how many guys are challenging side by side. I would have thought early on we would have seen just more single file and a little bit more patience. But again, to get by traffic as the race goes along, we talked about risk and return. You got to figure out what your car does on the high side of the racetrack. So you can't just always sit behind something. You got to get up there and run side by side to see what you got on the top side of this racetrack.
Danica Patrick putting a lap on Jacques Lazier. That's a different color car than it has been. That's the 3G entry, number 98. Here is Scott Dixon continuing to lead this battle, and he has a 0.6 of a second advantage on Ryan Briscoe, with Dario Franchitti running in 3rd position. We'll keep you updated throughout the running of this event of where the 3-point contenders are. We've completed 25 laps here of 200 in the Firestone Indy 300.
Bob, we're getting into the window where we're going to maybe most likely make a pit stop under green for these 3 championship contenders, Dixon, Briscoe, and Franchitti. This is the time, as Jan Beek said at the top of the show, they just don't want to screw up. They may be only over the wall by about 8 seconds, but they have thought about this each and every night since they started to load up to come down here. Now, for a guy like Scott Dixon, what he is going to need to do is have a good, hard, fast in-lap, but then his crew members are going to have to go to work. And remember to watch Ricky Davis. He is playing wounded with a sprained ankle. He'll be on the right front on Dixon. You lose time on pit road under green, and as you know, Robbie Buell, that's devastating.
As competitive as this field is, you can't give anything away. You just can't do it.
Here's Franchitti, who has dropped back now to about 4 seconds behind Scott Dixon. We eavesdropped on some radio conversation that Dario had moments ago.
The car is oversteered in the middle and understeered on exits of 4. At 4.
Now, anytime you have one condition in the middle of the corner and another one, oversteer, of course, is when the back is stepping out. Understeer is when the car wants to go straight. When you have 2 in the same corner, that makes hard work for the engineers.
No, what you always want to have as a well-balanced race car is to have it do one thing. You want it just to have understeer everywhere or be loose everywhere, so you really can dial in on that. So that is a tough combination. And when the car is loose coming off the corner, it just makes it hard to get back to full throttle. And anytime you're just waiting to get back to the throttle, it lets everybody get a run on you, just like Alex Lloyd had a run right down the inside of Mario Moraes.
And that's a battle for 9th position. Looks like that Lloyd will be able to take that spot. There are 14 cars on the lead lap. Among those that have been lapped, Ed Carpenter, who got off to such a good, strong start, but obviously is having some handling problems with that machine.
It's really amazing, you know, we're 40 laps in, the guys are getting lapped out there. It's just a busy racetrack. And as we said, nobody's ever going to have the perfect race car out there. And some are going to be a little better than others. And we're just seeing the disparity in terms of the balance and the speeds as these guys are putting laps on the tires. And talking with Firestone, the Firestone engineers, Jan, you and I talked about this, is they said this is one of the toughest racetracks there is in terms of just severe load in the car. And it's incredible that you would think that, but both ends of this racetrack are just a little bit tighter. And when the guys try and keep the cars down on the bottom, they're just putting that much more load in it.
Got teammates battling here for 5th position. To the left of your screen is Danica Patrick. Her teammate Tony Kanaan is in the green and white car. And they are among the biggest movers. Kanaan from 15th to 6th. Notice Dan Weldon 14th to 7th position as he continues to run in that spot.
Tony Kanaan definitely not happy with his pace in qualifying, but thankfully they have found a good race setup for Tony. He is certainly someone you would expect to be up near the front, but it is amazing how even with 4 cars and the data they have, that Andretti Green Racing still struggles to find that sweet spot.
Back in 8th position is Elio Castroneves, who, as we indicated, crashed. And this is actually Ryan Briscoe's backup car that he qualified yesterday. He is currently running in 8th spot, Robbie.
Actually, the team's backup car, that's the one either one of the drivers would go to. The backup is actually the Indy 500 winner. But he's moved from 11th up to 8th place. And Tim Cindric told him just a moment ago, do what you got to do. Give it more fuel. Go to field position 1. You've got to make up time. Ryan Briscoe, he's going to be treading into these guys. Wow. And Ryan Briscoe said just a minute ago he's loose on exit.
And Scott Dixon had a lot of traffic to go through there, including EJ Viso, but he survived that. This is the 12th race this year that Scott Dixon has led. That ties him for most races led with Ryan Briscoe.
Welcome back to the IndyCar Series on Versus. The first round of pit stops on lap 45. Ryan Briscoe, the man who sits 3rd in points. He talked about how the car was loose on exit. They needed to make a change. Roger Penske saying, watch me, wait for the time. And he's out with 7.4 seconds. Much, much better than he did at Motegi, coming out smooth. And a round of applause from his crew and everybody around.
First of the 3 championship contenders making his first scheduled stop, as Scott Dixon just is making a shambles of this field. He has already lapped up to the 10th place Mario Moraes.
And we had heard that Briscoe's car was also getting a little bit loose, so maybe, you know, we didn't expect to see him in on lap 45. We thought he'd at least probably go to 48, but just because of that balance he had in the race car, they maybe brought him in a little bit earlier.
And now Dixon will drop below the white line at the end of the backstretch, enter the warm-up lane, and his crew gets ready for his first pit stop of the evening. Down that long pit road at speed limit, Lindy Thaxton, he's headed toward you.
And we know Scott Dixon had to start second after a little mistake in qualifying yesterday when he did the roll bar the wrong way. And Chip Ganassi told me he thinks Scott's going to be even more motivated as he pulls into his pit box right now. His crew chief, Ricky Davis, as we know, he's injured there on the right front tire. Seems to be working well right now. There he goes. Ricky Davis told me they're going to make no changes to that number 9 car, and it is out in 8 seconds flat.
Wow, nice stop and no problem there with Ricky. And now Dario Franchitti, his team is laid out, and he should be dropping down and entering pit lane here in just a moment. And there it is. So he is the last of the 3 title contenders to make his pit stop.
And as you're watching there, that's a really challenging part of this racetrack. Coming down into pit road off of turn 3, when it gets flat there and still challenge the race car, it's tough.
Lindy, he's coming toward you again.
And here he comes, and as we heard him say earlier over the radio, he's complaining of some understeer in the middle and oversteer at the exit of the turns. I'm told that when they come in, they're going to do a half-turn wing change here. We can see them also getting tires and, of course, getting that fuel. Briscoe and Dixon should just be ready to come out of 4 as Dario is pulling out of pit lane right now. They are on the front stretch. We can also see Tony Kanaan is in pit lane getting those tires and fuel. As as he heads out now as well, guys.
He was running in 5th spot when he came in for the stop.
Now for Dario Franchitti, they took wing out of the front, so that'll get rid of the looseness in the middle of the corner, and I wouldn't be surprised, as Castro Neves leads this thing at the moment, that they may have made a tire pressure change to take care of the other understeer, Robbie.
But you never want to have a car that's loose. You want to have a car that does push. So I understand them backing off that front wing just to get the thing to come off the corner better and not be loose.
Elio led the previous lap. Now he will come down to make his pit stop, and that should give the lead back once again to Scott Dixon. We'll watch to see how things shake out, but Elio's team gets ready for his stop.
Helio Castroneves comes in on lap number 32. He was the leader at that moment, stretched out 7 more laps than his teammate Ryan Briscoe. He's complaining of understeer in turns 3 and 4, a half a turn up in the front wing, and he's out in 6.1 seconds.
That's a stop there, boys. 6.1 seconds.
And now we have cycled back to a battle up front. Scott Dixon and Ryan Briscoe are right together on the racetrack.
Remember how we talked about how this was going to be a team effort? Look how much faster. Oh, he's up in the gray.
Who is he up in the gray?
Well,
Ryan Briscoe's flying.
He was riding that momentum. He's like, I got a head of steam here. I'm just going to see what it does up top. And we haven't seen anybody run that high in 1 and 2 yet.
Here's the thing, though. Dixon was running away with this thing. They made stops. Certainly the Penske team has made the right change.
And let's not forget those 2 bonus points for leading the most laps. That's why Briscoe is challenging the top side there to get ahead of Dixon.
All right, those 2 running 1st and 2nd right there. Back in 3rd position is Dario Franchitti. He is about 4.5 seconds behind his teammate Scott Dixon, the leader of this race. You're watching live coverage of the Firestone Indy 300 from Homestead Miami Speedway here on Versus.
Welcome back to Championship Day for the IndyCar Series here at Homestead Miami Speedway. As you watch Scott Dixon, Ryan Briscoe start to battle, you want to figure out how did Briscoe make that advantage up. When you take the in-lap and the out-lap, you can see the out-lap was quicker for Ryan Briscoe. But guys, remember, he had pitted 2 laps earlier as we watch this battle for the lead. And Briscoe, guys, continues to go up to the high side, getting ready for the end, maybe.
I don't know, but he has been way up in the gray.
I love to see him up on the high side of that racetrack, and the more times he runs up on the high side of that racetrack, he gets confident. And the car in front of him that they're coming up to lap is his teammate, Helio Castroneves. So the disparity amongst cars after that pit stop is shaken out is really quite incredible.
Well, he's done it. He's gone up and taken the lead, but he has to stay in the lead longer than Dixon was to try and get those bonus points. But that's the way to do it. Go around the high side. Nicely done.
And now can it work out well for him to get in front of Elio, and Helio just kind of make it a little tough for Dixon to tag along.
Sarah Fisher makes a pit stop. It's a rather lengthy stop. Away she goes. She will run 2 cars next year and will increase her number of races by 3. And now we have another battle for the lead as Dixon fights back on the inside, but there's traffic ahead.
Whoa,
wow.
Look out.
You know, that could have been a call from the spotter going, you better back it off right there on the inside, because you had Carpenter and he just had to get back in behind Briscoe because he had the pass done.
But there was so much talk about how Elio was not going to be able to help Briscoe because he had a crash in qualifying start. Well, he just waited. I'll just wait for a lap and now I can help him.
Yeah, teammates are a good thing.
Here it is again.
Riding on board with Dixon. There's Briscoe. Looking down the inside, so he gets alongside him, and now we'll watch him back right up because there it is.
Yeah.
He had Carpenter on the low side right there.
He lost the air, had to downshift.
You know, the game, forget about what you had in qualifying. You know, we talked about TK earlier saying he didn't like his car too much. The car you had in qualifying versus the race car you have to have right now, it's a balance. You're not running flat out around this place all day long like you are in qualifying. You're having to work the throttle, work all the tools inside this race car. So that means nothing anymore.
I cannot believe how much the complexity of this race changed with one pit stop. You have a pit stop to where they throw a different setup on the car. All of a sudden, you have a dominant Scott Dixon. Now, you've got a Ryan Briscoe running away.
Yeah, but fellas, let's think about this. Let's go back to Milwaukee. This was the same scenario. Elio Castroneves out of the hunt and limping around. And remember, Ryan Briscoe was such a gentleman to his teammate. Wonder if he'll be that way this time. Remember, Dixon passed him in the race traffic. And I think it's going to be all for one and one for all here as far as his teammate is concerned, Ryan Briscoe.
Jack, you're spot on. Elio's going to do everything he can to do what is right for Ryan to try and win this championship.
Average speed of the race over 202 miles an hour with 70 laps completed, Lindy.
And let's talk about that race on pit lane with Ricky Davis. What did you think of that last stop as crew chief with Scott Dixon?
I think we were pretty good. We had a good clean stop. No problems whatsoever.
Looks like Briscoe's really getting away from him. What's he saying over the radio? Can you hear?
He hasn't said anything right now. He's just driving.
Ideally, what's a good length of a pit stop for you today?
What was that?
What's a good length of a pit stop for you today? When we see Scott come back in, what time are we looking for on that clock?
Hopefully faster than everybody else.
I like that. And how are you feeling?
I'm pretty good.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Ricky.
Good political answer, and again, we have a great battle, and Dixon, that's going around Elio Castroneves. So...
Still good battle.
Briscoe, no longer has his teammate up there.
Yeah, and, Elio could have kept him behind a little bit, but, when you get a run on somebody here, you got to play fair because it's a small world, especially in the IndyCar series, and people remember. So he's a first-class racer throughout, but this thing, it's going to circle around. The disparity amongst different cars here, Elio's still a factor in this race in terms of how he can maybe help Briscoe. And I just love the fact right now where Briscoe's run on the racetrack. The fact he can challenge the high side of this racetrack, I love it.
With Elio going a lap down there now, 5 cars on the lead lap. Jack, what was Sarah's problem?
Well, she was fast all week, and she had high expectations. I just talked to her husband, Andy O'Dare, and he said, don't know what happened to the car, but no matter what we do in terms of changes, it just won't go fast. Robbie, I believe they call it being stuck in neutral. That's the case on the Dollar General car for Sarah Fisher right now.
Yeah, neutral's not a good place to be.
No.
I mentioned she's going to go to 2 cars next year. Jay Howard will be the second driver in the team. Well, she had to lift there, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. So, sometimes it's a function just when you lose the balance of the car. You wonder where speed goes when you lose the balance in the race car and you just have to keep getting out of the throttle so much. You just never can get your momentum back. You run it out of the groove. You pick up debris on those tires, and you can just never get it back to feel comfortable and give you the confidence.
She did drop the left hand, which is where the anti-roll bars are. You have one for the front and one for the rear. So obviously she'd like to find more speed, and you can work those tools while you're out there trying to fine-tune the car. Because definitely the conditions are changing. You've got some cloud cover coming in. It's still hot, blazing hot out there.
And you have to ask yourself, in Briscoe's case here, is with the cloud cover that's moved in and the track starting to cool down a little bit, has that brought his car to life more so?
I think it's more the pit stop. I think they just did a brilliant change on that car on a pit stop. It just changed the complexion right now. He's looking like the man to beat in the first stint. No way was he the one. It was Dixon.
Well, you never know what can happen. I mean, you just keep that momentum going, and there you go. Man. But, you never know what's going to happen. Let's remember Motegi there. I think of Briscoe back in Long Beach. I think of a year ago when Dixon spun under yellow at Watkins Glen. The unexpected can always happen.
There was a 1.6 second lead that Ryan Briscoe has on Scott Dixon, and a 6.8 second lead on Dario Franchitti. Ryan Briscoe earned his money just a few seconds ago. We talk about him running high. This is a little too high.
But what it is, it's confidence. That's confidence in his race car to run that high and split those guys.
Anytime you see dust flying, that's because no one else has been there before. You're track sweeping. Here he comes on the right. Wow. Look out, baby.
Whoa. And you know Graham there, all he was worried about was racing Scheckter.
Yeah.
You know, and he had to dump the throttle, and there goes Briscoe on the high side.
All right, fellas, we're getting into the next pit window, and here's my analysis. First of all, the temperature is starting to drop. It's gone down by 3 degrees. Track temperature stayed pretty much the same, but the humidity is starting to go down as well. As the sun gets a little deeper in turn number 1, these cars are going to tighten up just a bit. And from the looks of things, what we want to watch this time around with the championship contenders, how long does Briscoe go before he pits as compared to Dixon and Franchitti? Does he lay one down, or does he play it close to the vest again?
And Jack, remember, we shouldn't forget this, that Ryan Briscoe pitted on lap 45 and Dixon 48, Franchitti 50. That's a 5-lap spread. So Briscoe is going to have to, at some point, save fuel.
And you wonder if he was just laying one down to try and confuse the competition, because he did have the fastest in and out laps and the fastest pit stop. So it's going to be fun to watch and compare this one, Jan.
Agreed, Jack, and I think that when your car's not right, pit early, get it fixed. Figure out how to make the next pit window later, because the Penske team certainly made the right choice, because that car came to life.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe why they were a couple laps early, is because he wasn't happy with the balancer. Said, okay, forget it. Get in here now and let's fix it.
Ryan Briscoe is the leader of the race, and in fact has put about 3 seconds between himself and Scott Dixon, but he isn't getting accomplished what he needs to accomplish, because as they run right now, he and Dixon are tied in points. And remember, Scott Dixon wins all tiebreakers. There's second place Dixon.
It's worth mentioning that if by some chance it stays green and you don't get a caution, you see Castro Neves come in. We would assume last time, if he's pitting already, he was the last to pit on the first round. He may have short-filled.
Robbie.
And remember, he had that quick pit stop earlier, but also he might be trying to get a little bit more off sequence. They said they can make up the difference of the pits. We're about to find out. I looked up to Tim Cindric and said, are you making any changes? He said, no changes here. So they're going to try and get a full load of fuel. You'll see if anybody goes up to the wings. Ryan Briscoe has already gone by 5 seconds, 6 seconds. They're holding him, getting that full load of fuel down at 7.4 again. It's a good stop for Helio Castroneves, and now he's just a little bit off sequence from the rest of the crew out there. Maybe he's looking for yellows later.
So what I was starting to say is that if it were to stay green, it's not a guarantee that Ryan Briscoe can make it in the same number of stops as Dixon and Franchitti, because he played that first window really early. Now, of course, a caution throws that all to the wind. And at the moment, he is playing a little bit behind in that regard.
Yeah, and we talk about Helio being the first to make that second round of stops. You know, Helio's not in contention for the championship, so it doesn't really matter. Just fill him up, put some tires on him, get him out there and run, and let's see how he can play into, you know, Team Penske challenging Team Target Ganassi at the end of this thing.
Going to the inside of Ryan Hunter-Reay, who competed in the Rolex Grand Am race here at this facility earlier today. It is Ryan Briscoe with a 2-second advantage on Scott Dixon and a 7.5-second advantage on Dario Franchitti. Kanaan and Patrick are the top 5.
Ryan Briscoe with the number 16 Penske machine pulls in. The leader right now, trying to be the leader at the end of the day and win this championship. He was told no changes, just 4 tires and a full load of fuel. Lindy Thaxton, you're up there with the Target team.
Yeah, Scott Dixon, and he was just complaining that he was loose at the entry. They told him in the car to make a damper adjustment forward on his own. Then watching his pit stop, and guys, maybe you saw something different. I didn't see them make any adjustments, so that must have worked.
Dario Franchitti now leads because he did not stop, and Ryan Briscoe went 50 laps before he pitted. He's now back into the same, obviously, pitted at the exact same time as Scott Dixon. He got himself back in the same window.
Yeah, so whatever those guys are going to do, they're just matching each other right now on the same sequence. It'll be interesting to see. We saw them both leaving pit lane with probably about 15 car lengths between them. Where are they going to sort out lengthwise after about 3 or 4 laps on the track?
Now for Dario, if you're going to push, this is where you earn your money. this is considered, in a way, an in-lap. Anytime that you haven't pitted, these laps right now, that could be what he needs to close the gap. He's just got to stand on it right now.
With no cars in front of him, well, as we say that, there's some traffic in front of him. That's the time to take advantage. Like you say, just keep that throttle pinned as quick as you can.
Tony Kanaan is running in second spot. He also has not made his second pit
what
stop.
What a break for Dario. Unfortunately, he's got to follow Kanaan. Now, Kanaan is no sluggard coming around pit road.
I was going to say,
still, it's a car ahead of you.
Just to be behind TK there, I don't think he's going to hold him up that much. That guy knows how to challenge it. But that, again, that pit in, when you transition off that 18-degree banking to the flat there, it's a tough deal.
As the number 6 car just comes through turn 1, Dario Franchitti is pulling up into his pit box right in front of Chip Ganassi. We know that at the last stop, he had a wing adjustment. He was complaining of understeer and oversteer. Well, this last segment, he was complaining of understeer in the middle of 3 and 4. They told him the same thing as teammate Scott Dixon was told to make a damper adjustment. Scott Dixon coming out of turn 4 as Dario and Tony both come off a pit lane. It looks like Ryan Briscoe takes the lead back.
Well, we heard there from Lindy, great reporting, thanks, but that Dario had more understeer, which makes sense because they took wing out of that in the first stop, but at least it's not having two things happening in the same corner with the car being loose and pushing. So that is a good thing that it balanced the car that way, just to have a push or an understeer.
Past the halfway point, no caution so far. The average speed of this race is in excess of 200 miles an hour, 200.7. One of the nice things about working at Versus, well, when there's something happen on the racetrack, we break out of commercial. We'll go back to it right now. You're watching live coverage of the Firestone Indy 300 live on Versus.
Today's championship day. You have this long season, 17 rounds, hard-fought championship. And basically it comes down to the last race, 3 drivers, and basically whoever's the best guy in Homestead is the champion.
Well, Ryan Briscoe had things going his way, but now Scott Dixon is back in the lead, as you saw on IndyCar nonstop on Versus. So Scott Dixon resumes the lead with Briscoe running second and Franchitti 7 seconds behind in third position. As we go down to Lindy Thaxton.
Here with Chip Ganassi, we've heard Dario struggling with some understeer, right? What's his condition right now?
Yeah, I mean, it seems we made a little fix on that. It helped him a little bit. It's an interesting situation with the 3 of us. There's only 3 cars on the lead lap, so makes for some interesting strategies here. I
hear that he's been kind of eerily calm all day, huh?
He's cool as a cucumber. That's a good thing about both of these guys.
Are you cool as a cucumber right now?
It's a little warm here in Florida today.
I hear you. Thank you, Chip. Jack?
Lindy, as we watch this battle with Scott Dixon at the head of Ryan Briscoe, while they drive for different teams, remember that they were teammates for that man you just spoke to. When Ryan Briscoe crashed so badly at Chicago a couple of years ago and had to battle back from severe injuries, it was Chip Ganassi, in essence, fired him, released him from competition. His teammate at the time was Scott Dixon. They're down under teammates, one from New Zealand and, of course, one from Australia, and they have remained close friends. When I talked to the two of them yesterday about the prospect of battling one against the other, they said, hey, mate, that's what you're supposed to do when you're neighboring countries from down under.
Well, it doesn't get any better and as pure as it can be for these two guys battling for the championship, both being from down under right now.
And amazing to me how much after every pit stop it just changes the speed depending on the changes that are made. Franchitti, we heard Chip Ganassi talk about the fact that we think we made it better, but I think they're going to have to make it one step better if he's going to be up there with the other two.
Or just riding on board with them right now. But remember, after that pit stop, we had Briscoe that had about 15 car lengths on Dixon when they left. There as he rolls off at turn 4, you can see just the sun setting, a little bit of glare reflection. Probably not too bad right now, but as that sun keeps shifting around, it may get right where it's in your visor and you just can't tilt your head enough to block some of it.
By the way, we are sorry to report that Marco Andretti is out of the race with a brake problem. Hideki Moto and Dan Weldon are running 7th and 8th.
Now, when Chip Ganassi said that it was an interesting strategy with only 3 people on the lead lap, Dario Franchitti was the last of those 3 to stop. So he could probably get away with just 1 more stop. The other 2 will have to save fuel if they want to do the same.
You're going to have to save fuel in a big way to kind of get up to that point, don't you think?
Just a bit. By the numbers, they just have to save a little. And we've seen people do. We've seen Briscoe do that earlier on in an earlier stint.
And Jan, you would have to say that historically Scott Dixon has done likewise. He is the master at making fuel. One of the reasons why, and he says that the reason is, he doesn't always go to the conservative fuel position. Instead, he uses his throttle response on his right foot to the accelerator. He's just smooth and easy. Meanwhile, as we watch Dario Franchitti, let's remember, he went a little longer, but still battles that understeer.
And with the track conditions, Jack, right now, and you talk about how Dixon saves that fuel with balancing the throttle. Right now, these guys aren't running flat out around this racetrack. The conditions are so tough around here, they're having to breathe out of the throttle and squeeze back to it, and that's where he's magical in making fuel.
Now, Robbie, when we were talking during the break, you brought up a great point. When you see the 2 lead cars, we certainly saw Dixon was dominant right after the stop, but that's on fresh tires. So usually halfway through the stint, when they're half worn, then we find out whose mid-stint balance is better. Maybe Briscoe's going to come back and challenge again.
Well, and that was Dixon's fastest lap. Right when he overtook Briscoe, that's the fastest lap. It was lap 105 that he had set. So obviously he took advantage of those fresh Firestone tires. Do they fall off? We're going to find out for him.
And right now, Briscoe's actually running faster. He's catching them.
Yeah.
Those in the grandstand and on TV can keep track of the championship contenders because they have the championship rings, the white walls, on their particular cars. They're the top 5 after 120 laps. You saw it on IndyCar Nonstop on Versus. We have a new leader again. Ryan Briscoe has charged ahead of Scott Dixon.
Wow. Well, right before that, we talked about the idea that was about halfway on the life of those tires. So it was about the 25 lap point where we saw Briscoe go by Dixon. Dixon obviously was very happy with his race car when he came in and had fresh Firestone tires on there. So, Jan, as we were saying, as they keep putting more laps on it, Ryan's car's a little bit happier as they run through the fuel window.
And guys, while Ryan Briscoe and Scott Dixon seem to be pulling away a little bit, the advantage over Dario Franchitti in the 3rd position. Franchitti with that understeer in the car. Chip Ganassi and his team have decided they're going to play the fuel mileage game. Remember, they pitted about almost a total of 5 laps later than Briscoe and Dixon, so they are now conserving fuel. So, Jan, you were spot on. If he's going to win this race, he's going to do it if it goes nonstop, screen to checker, and they get to go a little bit longer than everybody else.
It's Dario Franchitti. If it were to stay green, Jack, he could pit on anywhere between lap 149 and 151 and make it to the end. At the moment, the 2 leaders are going to have to save fuel, otherwise they'll be on pit road twice. They would never do that. They would have to turn it back to also just make 1 stop. But there's no question Dario, at least from a fuel standpoint, is looking good.
And what a great strategy right now. And did you notice right there, we just saw the shot of that car. Did you see the glare and reflection that was coming back into the cockpit there? That was definitely a blind spot.
We listened in on some traffic conversation between Scott Dixon and the team.
Dustin Briscoe on one fuel strategy, Dario on a different one. We'll just have to stick with where we are. We'll see how it plays out. Should I lean back? If you can stay in front and lean back, it's okay. We would still need 36 to be lead the most. 36 to lead the most. Copy 36.
Right now, Dixon has led 70 laps, Briscoe 45, Franchitti 13, and Castroneves 2.
But it's 45 and counting now for Briscoe because he got the lead back.
Robbie Floyd.
Roger Penske is a little too busy to talk to me right now, so Matt Johnson, he pointed his direction. Matt, is the car just not happy early on in that run and it's starting to feel a little better the later you go in that stint?
It seems that way. It seemed that way in the first stint as well. Ryan took over there towards the end of the stint. He's feeling really, really comfortable.
What's he been complaining of, or are there any complaints? I know Roger's really kind of been a cheerleader right now, cheering him on, telling him he can do it.
Oh, he's doing all the coaching he can, and he's doing a fantastic job at it like he does every race.
So what can you do early on? You need to lead those laps, and right now Scott has that advantage. What can you do early on in that stint to kind of make up for some of that lost ground?
Well, we're trying a few things here. Our engineer is figuring a few things out, and we're trying to get the car to work as good through the whole stint, of course. Right now, I mean, it's small stuff. It's down to tire pressures and wing angle and things like that. But, we're pushing to get the most lead laps here as well. We need it. In a tie in points, Scott wins it on most wins in the season. So, we're going all out here.
You can see how important it is to be strong on both ends of the stint, Jackaroo.
Robbie Floyd, let me break down for you how Chip Ganassi had an assistance in figuring out what to do in fuel strategy. Look to the far right side. You see where underneath it says EMC? Well, right now they're looking at the telemetry on Dario Franchitti. But over on the side of that monitor, there is a switch. They can switch it over and they can see Scott Dixon's telemetry as well. They switched over, they looked at it, saw the fuel consumption, guys, and they made the decision that we might not be able to beat them except by going on fuel mileage. Interesting, huh?
I think it's a great move. I mean, yes, interesting, but great. If they're really not thinking they have the speed to keep up with what Dixon and Briscoe are doing, go with that fuel mileage.
Well, when you have the fuel calculation software, and wow, they're split in the middle there for Scott Dixon. He needs to keep that momentum up. And that was also some nice courteous driving. That was Sarah Fisher that stayed low and left the middle lane open. But yeah, nice for shooting the gap.
Yeah, just get on, lean the horn a little bit, guys. Here I am. Right.
Championship contender coming through.
Yeah, here's the horn. Honk, honk. Yeah, there it is. That easy.
If you have the data calculation software, and I have a version up here we use to calculate those pit windows, but the one thing you always have to do, you have to guess what fuel mileage someone has. But as Jack was just saying, they're racing for a championship, and they can flip a switch and they can look at what their championship rival is using for fuel. They get the real-time numbers because they're on the same team.
Yeah, they're not guessing what that other guy's getting. And we heard from that conversation riding on board when Scott said, do you want me to lean it out? They said, only if you can keep him behind you. So we don't know what he did, but obviously he was running full rich on that thing to lay down the laps that he had.
He's fallen almost a second and a half behind Scott Dixon has.
If it were me, and I'm Scott Dixon, I lean it down. I don't take a chance on not being able to make it in one stop. I think he's got to go with Dario's strategy now. Yeah, I think you can't. If you can't make it in two stops, one person makes one stop, you make two, you're toast.
Well, no yellows right now.
Hideki Muto and Dan Weldon are running close together on the track. Here is Franchitti going to the high side of Weldon. He's running 8th and Hideki is 7th. Those two cars are 2 laps down.
And by the way, we're on lap 139. 149 is the key number. Yeah, you've got to get to 149 to make it in one stop. So we're in a 10 lap.
And we know when Dario's the one guy that can get to that point right now.
Ryan Briscoe leads the Firestone Indy 300 from Homestead Miami Speedway. Dixon and Franchitti follow.
On lap 143, it looks like Ryan Briscoe, the number 16 Penske machine, is about to come in the pits. The number 9, the Target Chip Ganassi car of Scott Dixon, just behind him. So the 6 crew ready to go over the wall. Gary Prawl, the right rear outside changer in practice yesterday, lost 3 of the wheel nuts. He says he's never lost one in competition, and he's not looking forward to losing one now. They're trying to get this full set of fuel in. 4 new Firestones, and Lindy Thaxton, the 6, is off.
And the number 9 is off as well in what should have been his final pit stop this IndyCar season. Crew chief Ricky Davis told me they just made a few air pressure adjustments, guys.
And Lindy what should have been his last stop. I don't think it is. Those two who just stopped, they're going to have to stop again unless there's a caution. Dario Franchitti, as the leader, is playing that strategy that Chip Ganassi called out. They're going to stay out. If they make it another 4 laps, they're good to go.
So if Dario Carr still maintains the pace, he really can win. If we don't see a yellow, he can win this race.
If he makes it 4 more laps before he pits.
And we think he can do that because he last came in on lap 100.
Yep.
There has never, don't want to jinx anybody here, but there's never been an IndyCar Series race run without a caution. And there have only been...
That's the end of that stat.
There have only been 2 races that have averaged in excess of 200, and we are on that pace right now with an average of 202.051.
And if you would have been back in your hauler doing strategy with your guys with the tough track conditions and the heat here, you would have banked on yellows at lap 20, 25. And
there you go. Let's, like you said, our prediction is that Briscoe will have to pit at 192 and Dixon at 193. Ooh, this is getting good.
Yeah, but you just talked about the yellow.
No.
There has not been a race this year that you haven't at least showed the graphic or said there's never been a caution, and then boom, there's a caution. That seems to happen every time.
No, not this year.
Oh, that was a moment for Dario. He got up there high and got a wiggle.
Trying to get to the high side of E.J. Viso, who is running in 19th position.
And Franchitti still running on older tires right now, used up tires, so they just don't have as much grip, which is part of the life and build that Firestone puts into those. He's still running pretty good times.
Now he can dip down now, as he does. He can pit now, and he's in the window. This is the lap that he can make it to the end.
And we don't see him behind here, so he must be on pit road. Yes, there he was.
Yep. So Dario will come in for his final pit stop.
How interesting is this?
Yep.
It only works if it goes caution-free.
Right.
Yes, well said.
All right, Lindy.
Well, we heard Chip Ganassi say earlier that after that last stop, he thought that the understeer would be better for Dario. And just a few minutes ago, we heard him say, I feel like the car is getting some more oversteer. Chip had just told me a couple minutes ago, we don't plan to make any changes. But as Dario was about to pull in, he asked for a wing adjustment, and he did just get a half turn out on that wing, and he's out in 7.7.
Well, like we say, so that half turn out, what that's going to do, that's going to ensure that car doing one thing through those corners 3 and 4, and that is he wants the front of the car to lead, the front to have some push in it. So just give me a little bit more cushion, take a half turn off of that.
Briscoe with about a 1.5 second advantage now on Dixon. We have a problem on pit lane as Danica Patrick and Dan Weldon appear to have had a meeting with Danica's car headed in the wrong direction.
Go, 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 go!
Crew works to get that car.
Obviously, he hasn't had service yet. They're laying out the sticker tire, so it's coming in that it happened.
Danica was coming in and Weldon out.
Yeah. That is why the right front tire changer, which is a great example right there, needs to have a sight down pit lane before you send a car. Just because you have everything changed, you can't send them if it's not clear.
No. As much as you want to as that right front guy, you can't in that scenarios.
Ryan Briscoe has led 62 laps, Dixon 70. So only 8 laps to go, and he'll then be in the running at the moment of that 2 points.
And he's got a pretty good gap on Dixon right now to get that deal done, to get those 2 points.
But all that will go out the window if they have to make a green flag pit stop. Dario Franchitti is going to be looking good.
In the catbird seat, yeah. Dixon goes underneath Robert Dornbos in the number 33 car, who spent the time between Japan and here at his home in Monaco. Now Dixon up to the high side of Sarah Fisher, who's 21st. The Dollar General sponsored machine.
And you can tell she's still fighting, just that car having a happy balance. She was just kind of easing into the throttle coming out there, but staying on the low side, you know, letting the quicker guys get by on the high side.
Let's update you guys on Danica Patrick. The crew has gone to work on the Boost Mobile car. They have damage on the inside rear suspension from that collision. They're going to have to change the uprights. You can see that they're working on it right there. Tough break.
Riding on board with Graham, and look at him saw the wheel. That's that very flat part of coming in pit road.
Graham Rahal, by the way, has just moved to 5th in the points with Danica's problem. And Graham Rahal is about to get his final pit stop of the year. Jack?
Remember, this is the first time that Graham Rahal has raced here at Homestead, Miami. He crashed in warm-ups last season, his rookie year. They go to work, make the changes on the McDonald's car. Graham Rahal has improved his oval track performance all season long, off and away in 7.9.
60 miles an hour all the way to that line right there, and you could hear him trip that pit lane speed limiter and light the tires up.
And a very good year for Graham Rahal, and I'm sure there'll be other great years ahead of him as Ryan Briscoe leads Scott Dixon by 2 seconds now. And Dario Franchitti, the only other driver on the lead lap, and he is almost 16 seconds behind.
2 to go.
Yep. This will be one of them. We have in no way decided who's going to be the champion, so we've still got 39 laps to go. Boy, this race has gone fast, hasn't it? Man.
Incredible.
Average speed of 201.4.
So what's the scenario now? Let's say Briscoe gets to where he gets the 2 points for leading the most laps and wins this race. What's that scenario do if Dixon's in second?
He'd be the champion if he wins, but the problem is he's going to have to hit pit road again.
Well, no, I know that. I'm saying in that scenario, but the fact that he's gotten these 2 points, right? If he gets these 2 points for leading the most laps, that gives him that cushion.
He could win out.
Yes. I mean, again, like you say, the way it looks right now, both Briscoe and Dixon are going to have to come in for more fuel,
unless there's a caution. We have to always put that in as the disclaimer. The moment that there's a caution, they can make it to the end.
We understand that Briscoe would win by 4 if that happens, Robbie.
Thank you.
So he will lead the most laps. Ryan Briscoe, he leads over Dixon and Franchitti. Back in a moment. Ryan Briscoe continues to lead the Firestone Indy 300 at Homestead Miami Speedway. As we present Firestone through the field, these 3 guys really came to race today because Briscoe, Dixon, and Franchitti have the entire field at least 2 laps down. They just lapped Tony Kanaan for the 2nd time, and he is running in 4th spot. There's the 2nd place car of Scott Dixon. And as they run, Dixon is 4 points behind Briscoe in the battle for the championship. Dario Franchitti in 3rd position. He is almost 19 seconds behind the leader. However, he's on a different fuel strategy. Jack?
Yeah, I think Dario Franchitti right now, as long as he doesn't go a lap down, I think Jan Beekes, the professor, would agree with me. He stands the best shot. But as I watch the way Scott Dixon is running this racetrack right now, Briscoe is running, and it's one thing. But as I watch Dixon, I'm starting to think that he is conserving fuel. He is running at fuel position number 1. But remember, Mike Holt wrote extensively during the season about how you can save fuel in fuel position number 1. I think Dixon is going to push this thing a la Chicago 2 years ago in 2007 and try and go without a pit stop.
And Jack, I agree that he is great at saving fuel, but the reason why I think this projection is going to come true is because his own team looked at his data and said Scott can't make it. They would never have done that with Dario if they didn't look at his real-time data and said, you know what, Scott can't make it. And I think if there's no caution, Dario Franchini's the champion.
Hey,
if there is a caution, it's going to be Briscoe or Dixon.
You know what, Jan? I defer to you, Professor B. I agree with you.
me too. Jack, I'm with you.
Mark that. We finally got to an agreement here in the last race of the year.
But also make note, in that fuel that Dario is saving, he's running a couple miles an hour slower than the pace of Briscoe and Dixon. So the key there is not to lose a lap.
I looked at the times, and the speeds that Briscoe and Dixon are running, that's not fuel saving. They're running 208 mile an hour laps. That's not fuel saving laps. So they are praying for something, debris, who knows what. They are somehow, they have got to have a caution or it's not going to happen.
If Ryan Briscoe wins this championship, it will be quite a story, because when he went to Motegi, things looked pretty good, and then he had that incredible incident coming off pit lane that dropped in third in the point standings, and here he is in a position at least to win the title.
He is the person who could most benefit from redemption. He has been carrying that. He said, I can't blame anyone but myself. Now, it's easy to happen. There was a transition in the pavement from concrete, but stagger, the way you get on the power, it tries to turn the car, but he is the one person who could benefit by saying that monkey would be off his back. But again, I don't think he can do it unless there's a caution.
All right.
You know, and what was interesting, I told you this the other day, Jan. I talked to Roger Smith. I said, well, you know, what are your words of wisdom for Briscoe? And he's like, hey, do what we always do. But he also was very quick to say what happened in Japan and was 100% behind Briscoe and say, hey, you know, those things happen. I mean, he didn't waver one bit. And how great is it to drive for a guy like that, you know, is behind you in anything you do, whether sometimes it's not perfect, to be with you.
Briscoe coming up on Rafael Matos for Lusso Dragon Racing, and he will undoubtedly be the 2009 Rookie of the Year. Nicole Mansky, Ryan's girlfriend, watches the final laps here. We've only got a little more than 21 laps to go.
So just some math with Briscoe. I mean, we're looking for him to probably be in, Jan, then what we just had on that graphic, about 190, 91, 92 in that range at this pace.
They could save a bit of fuel and make it to 195, but unfortunately the number isn't 200. That's what you need.
But he's probably not saving fuel now,
so that
with what he's doing on the racetrack.
That'd be more 192, 193 then.
Yeah.
There's Emma Dixon, Scott's wife. Ashley Judd is Dario's wife, and she looks rather calm and collected. Maybe she knows what her husband has in mind.
Well, there's some foot tapping by Ryan Briscoe's fiance Nicole there as they pan down, so a little bit of nerves.
They're getting married on December 19th, so that's not too far away. Be nice to be having $1 million to spend on the honeymoon.
Yeah, no kidding.
Maybe not all of the honeymoon.
Hey, fellas, we got the first blink. We have the first blink. Ryan Briscoe, they just told him on the radio, coming in 3.
Yep.
Wow.
No surprise there.
He has just picked up. Ryan does have the 2 bonus points for leading the race. Ryan has the 2 bonus points now. Still running very high on the racetrack.
So Dario, as well as a guy that needs to be trimmed back on his fuel setting, he's got to be doing what he can in the cockpit as well to save that fuel.
When you're within 3 laps of pitting, even a caution won't help you now. And Dixon's in a similar situation where he's going to have to hit pit road.
Look at these top 3. Look at the speed differentials between other cars. I mean, these 3 guys are in a zone of their own.
And it's been that race all way all race long.
Oh, after 5 laps.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. It's like the other drivers were told to just let these guys go and don't worry about yourselves. But that wasn't the case.
No, they're that hooked up.
Yeah.
Look at how Briscoe, I mean, it's almost like he's up on the high side riding a cushion there. He likes that so much coming off of 4.
As much as you see him closing in, you still have to think the virtual leader, if you want to call it, the projected leader, is going to be Dario Franchitti, because he doesn't have to come in. You lose a boatload of time. You lose more than a lap when you get under green.
How about that call to say, okay, let's see what Dixon's doing fuel mileage. They confirm that and say, okay, hey, Dario, immediately go back and trim back on your fuel.
Well, you were the guy to open the show. You said that Chip Ganassi shoots from the hip. He shot from the hip and he took a chance, and looks like it's going to pay.
I mean, but that's great.
That's why you shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
Dixon's closing in. It's only 0.3 of a second.
But he shot from the hip with data. He cheated because he got to look at the competitors' data.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't call you up here for some data.
No, they have everything they need right down there.
Look at Dixon close back in now. So at the, let's see, they'd come in. This is getting towards the end of that cycle on just the grip level of their tires, I guess.
Yeah, but if you look at the last lap speed guy, Ryan Briscoe is trying to move this beyond the 3-lap call-in. He's dropped off by almost a full mile an hour over Dixon.
But it's only going to buy you a lap or something.
But at this point, why?
Yeah, if you're a 199, fine, but you're going to have to pit. It's 13 to go.
Period.
Yeah.
So why trim back?
Because even if there's a caution, you couldn't run around and save enough fuel to make it.
Yep.
Danica Patrick is running in 19th position after her incident with Dan Weldon on pit lane.
That wouldn't be beyond someone to say, hey, pit in 3 laps just to get the attention of everybody else when maybe you weren't intending.
Got my attention.
That's never happened.
That car really likes the high side of the racetrack relative. You can see where Dixon's running through that corner relative to him. I mean, he's running a car width and a half lower. Man.
11 laps to go to decide the championship of the 2009 series. Never in the history of the IndyCar series has there been a race without a caution. We are on that pace now, and we are also averaging more than 200 miles an hour in this event.
And it's worth noting, we've said it many times, if you see the left wheels dip below the white line and you see somebody heading for pit road and Dario Franchitti can make it, they will not be the champion.
But how pure does it get? You know, what a battle we had leading into this before the green flag even fell. And now we're coming down to the end of this with a race that is probably going to be historical because it's going to run green the whole time, and we've never had that on top of what we're seeing on the track.
9 laps to go.
Who's coming in first?
They're laying out for Scott. Briscoe leads.
When you do this,
Scott's on pit lane.
When this is over, Dario Franchitti will be a lap ahead of him.
And yesterday we said, what does Dario got to lose? Gamble, and it's playing that way.
So Dixon has to make the pit stop with less than 8 laps to go. Oh, this is an agonizing, slow journey down pit lane for a splash of fuel, and a very costly one in terms of the 2009 championship. Just about 4 seconds, and he's out there. There's Franchitti.
And that's a lap and a lead. That's not just a lead, that's a lap and a lead.
Yep.
And
here comes Briscoe.
If Dario has enough fuel, he's got to make it, but he could be the champ.
Unbelievable.
And we think he can.
He has to not hit anything.
That's right.
Oh, my gosh.
Ryan Briscoe has entered pit lane. He's done all he can to win the championship, but he lacks fuel to go to the finish. Robbie.
Anything can happen in the IndyCar series. We've already saw that. Remember back at Motegi. Now we see the 6 of Ryan Briscoe pulling to the pits for the last time. It's going to be a splash and go. No tires. Roger tells him to take off, and Matt Giese looks like a solid job. West Salem, Illinois boy. Got plenty of fuel in, and there goes Dario Franchitti taking the lead, and he only has 5.5 laps remaining.
Franchitti takes the lead. Oh, my gosh. Can he hold on for the next few laps and bring it home?
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps on a hot day, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, 5 to go. Both Dixon and Briscoe are behind you. You are the leader.
195 complete.
They're a quarter of a lap behind you.
Okay, and I should make sure I put this straight. Because Dario was nearly a lap behind.
Seconds behind you.
When you hear from the radio transmission,
6 seconds behind you.
that 6 seconds and that 8 seconds is the same lap.
4 laps to go.
Yeah, he has a 6-second lead on Ryan and a 7-second lead on Scott.
Yeah, and because we saw Briscoe right behind Franchitti right when he tailed off to come down the pit, so he would have lapped him then.
Danica gets to the inside of Dario.
Because Dario just has to be, he's got to be sure he makes it. He's got to save fuel.
3 to go.
197 complete.
But he's also got to run enough of a pace to cover that 5-second gap back to Briscoe.
5 seconds is a lot.
Go full bore and mixture 4.
Oh, full bore.
So last lap, he did, that is Dario did a 200-mile-an-hour lap compared to Briscoe at 205 miles an hour.
2 to go. Flat out, mixture 4.
Remember, that's flat out in 4. That's fuel save. So that's how fast can you go on the most fuel-saving mode.
Yeah.
What a gamble by Chip Ganassi. There's not enough. There's too much of a gap. There's too much of a gap. If he doesn't run out of fuel, he's going to be the champion.
Well,
and he has one more lap to go.
Last lap.
1.5 miles to decide the championship. Dario Franchitti is in turns 1 and 2, and what a championship that's played out here this afternoon. 1.5 lap to go for Dario Franchitti. It's like he's never been away. He went to NASCAR last year, but he came back, and he won the 2007 title. Now he's returned to win another title. Franchitti showed everybody that his year away from IndyCar racing has absolutely no effect on his ability to win championships and races. An incredible fuel strategy has played out. Dario Franchitti wins the Firestone Indy 300 and is the champion for 2009.
Great job, man. Great job to everybody.
Dario joins teammate Scott Dixon and Sam Hornish Jr. as a multiple champion of the IndyCar Series. And it was the second fastest race in IndyCar history today, the first without a caution. The average was 2:01.420. Lindy Thaxton.
Ashley Judd getting a big hug from Chip Ganassi. Ashley, you told me as the final laps were winding down, you have never heard your husband so intense.
There was a very distinct quality in his voice with about 30 laps to go, and I thought, oh my God, he wants this very, very badly. He was obviously running in third for most of the race, but that didn't mean that he was out. I mean, he was very, very determined. I cannot believe what just happened.
Yeah, after being out last season, was this even in you guys' wildest imagination?
The story is so perfect that it defies credibility almost. How long has it been since a race was yellow-free? It was such a pure race. How great is my husband at being fast while saving fuel?
There you go, a happy wife as Dario spins his tires out there on the front stretch.
Well, Chip Ganassi got it done.
Shot from the hip, Jan.
Shot from the hip.
How about that?
Good going, guys, on your predictions there, Professor B.
Well, he looked under the hood next door and said, I think I'm going to go for it.
I think that's great.
Ryan Briscoe wound up second. He gets out of his car after a gallant effort, no question about it.
Did everything he could do today. It fell short.
Yep. And Franchitti is out of fuel. He had enough for a burnout, but may not be able enough to get to victory lane. Lindy?
Chip Ganassi giving even more hugs. We'll talk to him again later. Hey, Chip, let's talk about the fuel strategy. P.S. Dario just ran out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it was a strategy that, you know, obviously if we had a yellow, there would have been 2 more guys in the race. And, you know, we think we had that race won too, you know, but we won the fuel strategy race. I'll tell you what, that Dario coming back from NASCAR back to here for this was great, and I'm happy to give him the championship.
Congratulations. We'll talk to you a bit later.
Thank you.
It is all over, folks, and it went out in dramatic style this 2009 season. Dario Franchitti uses some different strategy, fuel strategy, and wins the championship. Homestead, Miami Speedway, and the race has been concluded with the winner of the race, and the winner of the 2009 IndyCar Series Championship is the man who is still in his car. He ran out of fuel before he could get the burnouts done and before he could get to victory lane. But it all belongs to Dario Franchitti and the Target Chip Ganassi team. Izod salutes a winning performance with Izod victory lane. Here's Robbie Floyd.
And the 5th win of the season, maybe the most precious. It is the most precious for Dario Franchitti, taking his 2nd IndyCar Series championship. And he could not do it without the team Target members behind him. Barry Wanzer, you told him you suck at donuts. He said, this is a great time to practice.
Yeah, we were okay at fuel mileage, though. She managed a couple of sets of donuts there. We rooted the old Firestones, but wow.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't. Scott looked really quick. So again, like in 2007, I just had to try and save some fuel and stay on the strategy that we picked. And God, did it not work out.
I know. And early on, he got a little squirrely. They're having to make adjustments as he gets congratulations from Mike Hull. Barry Wanzer over his shoulder. And Ashley, your first time to see her, but come on in here, Ashley. No, this is both of your moment. And it wasn't just a fuel strategy thing. You 3 guys, I mean, were clearly the cream of the crop, but early on it looked like you were going to have to make some adjustments. Car got a little squirrely early on too.
Yeah, the Target car wasn't great early that first stint. Chris and the boys made some adjustments, and from the second stint on, we were right there, but we'd lost so much ground. We were in fuel-saving mode, and the other guys obviously were running flat out. So we couldn't quite keep up with them because they were running full rich or whatever. Or we were certainly lean and saving fuel, but we were sticking to our strategy. The car was really good towards the end there. It would have been fun to run full rich up with those boys, but it's all about the result, and you got to
win is a win. Right?
A win is a win. Stick to your plan. On the slowdown lap there, I was thinking about my buddy Greg. 10 years ago, I was in a championship fight with the Target boys and Montoya, and it didn't really matter because we lost Greg. That was 10 years ago this month, so this one's for him.
When were you thinking about him out there on the track, or once you finally crossed the checker flag?
Oh, hell, after the checker, he'd have kicked my ass if I was thinking about it when I was driving around.
Now, you're doing all this also on the fuel strategy, but you didn't have to worry about those extra points and having to lead the most laps. Do you think that took a little weight off your shoulders where those guys were battling?
I was just doing the best I could. I was just going as quickly as I could with the fuel position they allowed me to do, make the car as good as I could. Again, I got to take my hat off to this Target team and my teammate Scott. It's been a hell of a year. I got to thank Chip for giving me the job. It's been a pleasure to work with Dixie, and we're going to have a party tonight.
Scott, come on in here. For everybody that wins, somebody has to get second, third, and so on. You know how hard it was for him, and it wasn't too long ago at Chicagoland. You were helping out your teammate, Scott Dixon, and that was tough for you, but it all paid off at the end, didn't it?
No, we're teammates, and we do everything we can. I mean, each of us wanted to win this one today. We fought it out in 07. We fought it out again this whole year. It's been a pleasure, and I'd love to stay in the Target team with Scott. Definitely loving it right now. Loving being part of the IndyCar Series. I gotta say thanks to all these fans for hanging out in this weather today, because it was pretty ugly in the car, and that was a 215-mile-an-hour air conditioner, so I don't know what it was like on those stands.
Well, congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for sticking around. This is your 2009 IndyCar Series champion, Dario Franchitti.
and we will talk more with him in our championship presentation. Plus, we will talk to some more drivers. But the race has been run, and the champion has been crowned. It is Dario Franchitti. Final point standings for 2009. Dario Franchitti increases one spot to the championship. Dixon down one. Briscoe, Castroneves, and Danica Patrick stay the same. Danica will finish 5th in the point standings. Tony Kanaan, really the big mover in the top 10 as far as points are concerned. He gained 2 positions and finishes in 6th spot. Marco Andretti lost 2 because he was out of the race early with a brake problem. Dan Weldon and Justin Wilson end tied for 9th.